That help, Paul?
Yep, that helped a lot.
I'm left-handed, so.
I have found the easiest way to put a bead on is to hold your hook upside down. And if you'll notice, sometimes beads will have a smaller opening on one side than the other. If you have a bead like that, you want to put the small side through the point. Okay. And I'll re-rig this. Come on, come on. Now I'll start my lead over again. Okay. Often, if you have a bead on, these glass beads have a wider opening than a lot of the metal beads. And what I will often do is when I put my lead on, zoom that in a little bit so you can see a little bit better. I'm going to slide that lead into the back of the bead, and it will help hold that bead in place. So if you're using a glass bead, you might want to try that. And since I'm going to have a red body, I am going to be using some red thread. And get that out. At this point, from here on, for the next several steps, it's just like that woolly worm we did. I'm going to lay a little bit of thread base back toward the bend. And then I'm going to go forward through my lead so that lead will stay in place and it won't slide all over. And if you remember on the woolly worm, the first thing that we tied on was a little bit of a red tag. Well, the first thing we're going to tie on here is your marabou. So I've got some contrasting colors. I'm going to put a green marabou on. I'm going to have a red body, and then I'm going to have white hackle. You can use whatever colors you want. That's just some colors that I think are Christmassy. So I'm going to grab this marabou plume, and I'm going to strip off some of that stuff. There are a lot of different ways to do this marabou application, but this is what works best for me. I'm going to strip some of that off, and you want your marabou to be about the length of the hook shaft. And boy, that is some terrible marabou. I don't like that marabou. I'm going to grab another one. The marabou that we have out here is specifically designed for woolly buggers. You can get different kinds of marabou. A lot of the stuff is called blood quill, and it doesn't have the fluffy appearance of the woolly bugger marabou. But I'm going to strip some of this off, and I'm going to estimate the length of my hook shaft, and that's getting pretty close. I'm going to tie that in right where the bend starts. I want to try and keep the marabou on the top of the hook. Then I'm going to wrap it forward up to my lead, and then I'm going to cut the excess off. Okay? Now you should have gotten some flashabou. I just think it really adds a lot of sparkle to the fly. I'm going to take a piece that I've cut in half, and I'm going to fold it in half, cut that, and here's a couple of ways you can put this flashabou on. For you just getting into this business, if you will hold it on the side facing you and just make a couple of connect wraps on the side facing you, Then hold that over to the other side and connect the other two strands on the other side, and then you trim them so they're all about the same length. You should have 2 pieces of Flashabou on each side of your woolly bugger. I've never tried fishing a Christmas colored woolly bugger. It might work. Maybe it's just in December. I don't know. Next thing we're going to tie on is the last thing we're going to wrap forward. So you need to get your hackle out, and I've got a piece of hackle here, and I've got the pointy end on the left, and I've got the bigger end on the right. If I had my druthers, I'd want the longest hackle nearest the eye, and the shorter hackle is probably going to be nearest the little end. So that's the end that I'm gonna tie on, and I'm going to strip back some of that hackle so that I've got it looking kind of like so. And this is the end that I'm going to tie on. That folding that back keeps it out of the way, and I'm going to tie that on right about the bend. Okay. And I have a piece of this sparkle braid that we used on the woolly worm. I want the body to be a little bit bigger, so when I tie it on, I'm going to take that and lay it right behind the eye, not next to it, but just leave a little space, and then I'm going to wrap that the length of the fly, and then take my thread back to the bend, and now I'm going to move my thread up behind the glass bead, do a little half hitch, and get that out of my way. Then I'm going to wrap this forward. That marabou gets in your way. If you just dampen your fingertips just a little bit with some saliva, it will stay in one place. And I'm going to make some nice tight wraps for my body up toward the eye. I don't want to get too close, because I'm going to be having to tie several things off right there, and I don't want it to get so close that it's going to be a problem. When I get it about where I want it, I'm just going to go over 2 or 3 times. Then I'm going to trim the body off. I'll make another wrap or 2, and then I'm going to half hitch that. And the next step is to grab that hackle, and we're going to wrap it forward. I've got a couple things that I got snagged on my hook point that I need to get rid of. Okay, I'm going to take that hackle, and I'm going to back this off again. That's as far as I can back it off. Notice I'm trying to make sure my hackle is level. I don't want to wrap when it's twisted. I'm going to wrap it when it's level, and if it moves on me, I'm just going to keep my hackle plier, make it stay flat, wrapping it forward. This is the part where all the high school kids go ooh and ah. When all that hackle starts folding up nice and neat. I'm going to bring it over, and the camera's in the way. Drop it 2 or 3 times, and then I'm going to trim that hackle off. Okay. I'm going to try and if you can, I'm trying to grab those individual pieces of hackle and bend them back. And now I'm ready to whip finish, and I have a fly that is completed. I almost decided to do this in 2 classes. That might have been a smarter thing to do, but
You want to get all the same people there.
yeah. So there is a Christmas woolly bugger. Woolly buggers are effective. It doesn't really make much difference what
Been
color.
on there for a while.